Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's a senior NFL writer for The Athletic and a contributor to 670 The Score. Please welcome Dan Pompei to the program. Dan, it's great to have you on. How are you?
I'm great. Good to be with you today.
So, Dan, what was your reaction to the Bears press conference yesterday?
Well, I think it was pretty much what I expected, which was really kind of a lot of nothing. These press gatherings at this time of year usually do not reveal much. They're kind of designed not to reveal much. And really, in defense of the people who are speaking, they really can't say a whole lot now because they're trying to keep their cards close to the vest, and they have their interests to protect in terms of, the moves that they hope to make, the moves that they're not quite sure if they can make. So I think it's pretty much a lot of nothing, which is what we got. And I don't know that we learned anything that we didn't know in that press conference with Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy.
Is Matt Nagy really a strength for this team based on what they said?
Well, I think that has yet to be determined. I think you're only as good as your last outing in the NFL, and the last outing wasn't too good, but his record is above 500. Of course, he had the great 2018 season, and, he's a young coach who's still trying to really establish himself and prove himself. So I think, obviously this is a big year coming up, the 2021 season for Matt Nagy. He's got to go out and show that he can be a coach who reaches the kinds of heights that he did in 2018 and pushes the right buttons. He's obviously got some new coaches around him. He'll be changing some things. I'm sure he's going to have some new players. He's probably going to have a quarterback who he picked for the first time in Chicago. So all these things should enable him to do his best job.
How much of an issue do you think that was, the fact that he never had his own tailor-made quarterback?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I think, I don't know that any coach could have made Mitch Trubisky look like Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson. You only have what you have to work with. And I think, obviously Trubisky is limited in terms of some of the things he can do. That being said, I don't think that the coaching staff always did everything it could to highlight what Trubisky does best and also minimize the things that he struggles with. So, those are things that, you kind of learn over time, you see over time, and hopefully they'll be able to do those things more with the next quarterback, whoever he is.
Dan Pompei here on Sports Talk Chicago. Dan, who do you think will be the Bears' next quarterback? What are you hearing?
Well, I don't think they know yet. I think it's still a situation that's developing. I think, if fans are hoping for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, they're going to be disappointed. I think those are big asks that are probably not possible for the Bears. I think there's, for various reasons. But I think, there's going to be a number of other quarterbacks who move, probably lesser names, probably get people less excited. But some of those guys are certainly possibilities. Maybe you're talking about someone at the level of a Marcus Mariota or an Alex Smith. I think, in some ways it makes sense to get kind of a mid-tier veteran and bring him in here, let him compete with Nick Foles, and then go out and maybe draft a guy. Not necessarily first round, but, if there's a value there in the second round or third round, bring a guy in, see if he has what you believe it takes to be developed, and go from there.
Could Mitch Trubisky still return? Do you think that's possible?
I think it's a long shot. I wouldn't completely rule it out, but I think for that to happen, there'd probably have to be a lot of other options that dry up. I think, once you kind of go down the road of looking for a quarterback and talking to other teams about a trade or kind of establishing yourself as a player in the quarterback market, it's difficult to go back to that quarterback again. But you never know. I mean, they might get to a point where they really believe that Mitch is their best option. Mitch might get to a point where he believes that the Bears are his best option to start and thrive. So, you cannot rule, as Ryan Pace said yesterday, you really can't rule hardly anything out at this point.
Who is their best option to you?
Well, I mean, that's a complicated question. I mean, I don't know how to answer that because I guess, he'd have to be available. What would the price be? How could they accommodate? I mean, there's a lot of different moving parts with something like that. So I guess I would defer from answering that question because I don't really know how to.
Dan Pompei here on Sports Talk Chicago. Dan, besides quarterback, what more do the Bears need to address for next year?
There's a lot of things. I think, certainly the wide receiver situation is big with Allen Robinson being a free agent to be, and let's assume that they can retain him through either a new contract or a tag or whatever. I think they still need help with the position. They really did not have playmakers who stressed the defense last year. Now, Montgomery came on late in the season. Cole Kmet came on late in the season. But, I think it takes – you're going to need guys, dynamic playmakers, who can do that over 16 games. And I think they need to be on the lookout for one. Obviously, offensive line is an issue. They need to look at I think the offensive tackle. Looks like interior of the line is pretty solidified at this point. On defense, you lost your nickel corner. They cut Buster Screen the other day. You're going to have to do something at that position. Safety, you're going to have to find a starter somewhere unless you bring back the free agent to be. I think there's a lot of different things they need to look at, and they need to hope that some of the players who had underachieving years last year for themselves can do better. Especially a guy like Robert Quinn, who's making so much money and so much is expected of.
Why haven't they paid Allen Robinson yet? What's the holdup there?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably pretty simple that Robinson believes he's worth more than the Bears do, and they're hoping to get him at a better value than he's willing to settle for at this point. And I think that's been going on for a while. And that's usually the case when a player is not signed. It's not, I know everyone can criticize the Bears and say, why didn't you sign him? Well, it's because they have him rated as a player who's worth X amount of dollars. And Robinson and his agent believe, he's worth Y amount of dollars. So, they have to find a way to either bridge that gap or to be creative with a contract or have him play on a franchise tag.
Does Robinson deserve the money based on pure performance to you?
Deserve what money? we're kind of in that land of hypothetical again, where it's a complicated question. I mean, he's a very good wide receiver. Is he one of the elite receivers in the NFL? One of the top, 5? No, he's not. But he's very good. So, I think there's I know that's what the Bears are looking at. They don't want to pay him the way the very top receivers are paid, but they want to pay him in a way that would reflect his value as a, I don't know what you'd call it, a second tier receiver, or, one of the guys who are maybe in the 5 to 15 best receivers in the league.
You mentioned David Montgomery earlier. I'm curious, how did you evaluate his performance last year? And what do you make of the rumors that the Bears could still be in the market for a running back today?
Well, I didn't think he was very good early in the year, and I thought he was fantastic later in the year. He really came on, and I think part of that was because of the offensive line in front of him. The whole entire offense seemed to get in sync. Even the play calling and the game planning, it all worked together well late in the season. But he's got to prove that he can do that over 16 games and be consistent with it. I think over time we've seen a lot of running backs have spurts where they do well, but being that guy like Walter Payton who can do it game after game, season after season, for a long period of time, that's what really separates the ones who are great or even very good from just average. So, I think that's important. In terms of what do I think of them looking for another running back, I think they probably should, because you need more than one. Obviously, Tariq Cohen got hurt last year, but he's a different style of player. I think it would probably behoove them to get another running back who they believe can be a four-down back like Montgomery, and give them a little bit of insurance policy in case he's not playing well or he gets hurt. And, I think, most of the best teams in the league now have a multi-pronged running back approach where it's, a 2 or 3 headed monster.
Do you like that approach personally? Do you like that shift of how the position is gone?
Well, I mean, not everyone can have a Derrick Henry. There's only so few of those. So, if you've got one, great. Then you don't need the multi-prong approach. But even the Titans, even they split up the carries a little bit. I think, in today's NFL, it just makes sense to have more than one guy, because those guys do take such a pounding, and you want to keep them as fresh as you can keep them so that they are strong and able to get the tough yards in the fourth quarter, the tough yards on 3rd and 1 and the goal line, whatever it may be. So, I like the approach. I mean, it's obviously an individual case-by-case basis, depending on your personnel and your offensive scheme. But I think, generally speaking, more than one running back is the way to go.